This year, I've started to fall in love with the Persona franchise. Persona 5 Royal was the first one I played, but I've also since played Persona 3 Reload and Persona 4 Golden. Yes, I only play on PC. What do you want from me? Anyway, something quite easy to point out about Persona 3 and the remake Reload is the amount of Greek mythological references included. The most apparent and immediate example would be the fact that the dungeon in which most of the gameplay occurs is a giant tower the group calls
Tartarus.
Tartar sauce. What?
It got me thinking about the similarities and differences between Persona 3 Reload's use of mythology with the actual myth. I wanted to make a shorter video talking about some of the most important or interesting examples of mythological references in Persona 3 Reload. But if you're into this kind of thing, feel free to express your interest in a longer video by leaving a comment. I'll break up my analysis into 3 sections: characters and personas, story moments, and an analysis of the purpose of Greek mythology specifically in this story. To briefly explain to those that are unfamiliar, the concept of Persona 3 Reload is this. You have awakened to an unnatural power to wield a part of your identity as a creature you can summon to fight for you. This is referred to as a persona! A persona, yes. The creature bears the name and appearance of something from worldwide folklore, myth or religion, and many of the cast of Persona 3 have personas that are specifically from Greek mythos. A group of high schoolers who discover the power within them realize it gives them the ability to remain conscious during the Dark Hour, a secret 25th hour of the day in which creatures called shadows attack people. The game follows the story of discovering the secrets of the Dark Hour, as well as saving people from shadows and evil people who navigate within the Dark Hour. The story is pretty complex, and it's also a great experience if you want to try it yourself. That is, if you ignore the grind. It feels like fighting through Tartarus is just
Stairs. Stairs.
Teleporter. Stairs.
Stairs. Teleporter. 2 enemies. You can take them.
With that said, I'm going to avoid saying too much about the story now, but I will say that this video contains spoilers for Persona 3 Reload and in turn many other iterations of Persona 3. Without further ado, let's start with characters and personas. I'm going to briefly explain the main cast and their different personas they wield. If I don't mention your favorite character, it's probably because their connection to mythology is rather weak, or I just didn't have enough to say about them. Let's start with our player character, Makoto Yuki. Makoto is the wild card, meaning he can capture and wield other personas found in Tartarus, as well as use the help of
the Velvet Room
to create more personas. That said, Makoto is shown in many narrative moments to possess the unique personas of Orpheus and Thanatos. Thanatos is the Greek god of death, and while the persona can be more closely linked to the character Ryoji, it relates to Makoto in that their fate at the end of the story is to die after a year's passing. Orpheus, being a persona exclusive to Makoto, makes more sense. Makoto meets the manifestation of death itself, lost his parents as they died when he was young, and knows his fate to die at the end of a year. Orpheus's wife Eurydice died in Greek mythology, leading Orpheus to go to the underworld and plead through song to let him bring her back. This relates to Makoto working towards his goal with the rest of Seas, but ultimately staring death in the eyes at the end of his journey. Junpei Iori.
More like stupid.
Junpei's personas include Hermes and later Trismegistus. Hermes is a messenger god, also characterized as a trickster. He is often depicted with winged boots that are said to grant incredible speed, with Hermes being the only of the divine able to regularly travel to and from Tartarus. With Junpei having a love for baseball, a sport that involved a large amount of running, not to mention his aloof and carefree attitude one would expect from a trickster, it's a rather weak but a present connection. Trismegistus seems to just be a syncretic combination of Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. So basically his personas are Hermes and Hermes too.
Let's get a move on, party people.
Mitsuru Kurijo. This ruthless navigator turned combatant wields the personas of Penthesilea and Artemisia. Penthesilea was a queen of the Amazons who fought in the Trojan War and was said to have killed Achilles. Along with being a formidable fighter, the Kurijo group led by Mitsuru's family seems to be responsible for the incidents that led to the death of Yukari's mother, though I've yet to see any sort of connection to Achilles in that, so it might just be coincidence. Artemisia is actually a plant, but it takes its name from Artemis, a Greek goddess of chastity and the hunt. Mitsuru would definitely worship Artemis as a goal-oriented hunter in the dungeon of Tartarus. If Makoto wasn't the player character, I'm sure Mitsuru would naturally be the leader of Seas. In fact, it seems she was before they began to introduce new members. Aegis, that's A-I-Gis, not Aegis. The robotic anti-shadow weapon holds the persona of Athena. Athena is the goddess of strategy and war tactics. She often bears a shield in her mythos, a tool for protecting oneself. Aegis was created with the sole purpose of eradicating shadows, making use of intelligently programmed strategy, and later develops awareness and swears to protect Makoto to the best of her ability. She is, essentially, Makoto's shield.
Please keep relying on me.
Koromaru. This adorable furry friend possesses only one persona, Cerberus. Cerberus was a guardian of the underworld meant to keep its dwellers from leaving, though in Mythos, Orpheus was able to charm Cerberus and enter with his music. While Koromaru doesn't have 3 heads, he is the protector of the group and... okay, I'll admit, I think they just wanted the dog character to have the dog figure in mythology as a persona, but I'll let it slide, you cutie.
Oh, you're such a loyal dog.
Ken Amada. Aren't you a little young to be a persona user? Apparently not, as he learns to wield Nemesis. This absolute S-tier party member lost his mother as a result of C's actions when he was younger, and he blames Shinjiro for letting her die. He vows to have retribution and kill Shinjiro himself, though for reasons I'll touch on later, he isn't the one to actually kill Shinji. Nemesis is a deity that personifies retribution. Wow, wouldn't you know? Since this is Ken's character-defining moment, I find it fitting that his persona embodies this part of him. Akihiko Sanada, the upperclassman who is characterized solely by his protein intake, possesses Polydeuces. Polydeuces is one of 2 heavenly twins, along with Castor. They were combined into Gemini for the purposes of star constellations, but exist in Greek mythology as the Dioscuri. Both were mothered by Leda? Both were mothered by Leda, but Castor was son of Tyndareus, while Polydeuces was son of Zeus. In their tale, the relevant info is that Polydeuces shared immortality with Castor, each becoming half immortal. This connects somewhat profoundly to Shinjiro Aragaki. Shinjiro possesses only one persona in the form of Castor. Sorry Shinji fans, but this emo boy is shot by Takaya and mourned by Akihiko. After Shinjiro's death, Akihiko promises to carry on the work in Seas to fulfill Shinjiro's promise that they would continue to work together. A rather metaphorical way of sharing immortality, to carry his name in your great work. Touching. Takaya Sakaki. Takaya is the leader of the antagonizing group, Strega. He wields the persona Hypnos. Hypnos is a god of sleep, and twin brother of Thanatos, god of death. Takaya leads the Doomsday cult towards the end of all things since all will eventually die, and eternal slumber is the only way to escape. Yeah, I think we can safely say Hypnos is pretty fitting for this role. It also fits since the powerful entity he attempts to usher in is also given the name of Nyx.
Nyx's arrival is but moments away.
Chidori Yoshino. Christ, girl, that hair must be hell. I'm a Tartarus to take care of. Chidori possesses the persona Medea, a magician from an ancient Greek play by the same name, also found as a Greek mythological character. In the play's story, Medea helps Jason steal the Golden Fleece, and Jason repays him by leaving her for another woman, so she decides instead to murder herself and her children as revenge. Huh. I guess it's in Greek character for the woman to be punished for the man's crime or something. Chidori takes her life to protect Seas from Strega, most notably to protect Junpei, who falls in love with her. Seeing as Jin and Takaya are more focused on their goal than their alliance to Chidori, and they are fully willing to move on without her, it is fitting that her death as a result lines up with Jason and Medea's dynamic of partnership leading to the male figures leaving behind women for something else. Tragic. Story moments. I mentioned earlier the labyrinthian tower known as Tartarus. This dungeon is where most of the combat-focused gameplay of Persona 3 Reload takes place. Tartarus is the underworld in Greek mythology, overseen by Hades and Persephone. While we have no Hades nor Persephone in this game's story, the top of the tower leads you to face off against Nyx, a powerful entity who wishes to bring eternal slumber to the world as its inevitable end. Nyx in Greek mythology was the goddess of night who gave birth to Hypnos, Thanatos, the Fates, and Nemesis. Much like gods in Greek mythology, Nyx cannot be killed and is immortal. The only way the group defeats Nyx is through Makoto's sacrifice, as he sacrifices his life to bind Nyx in a seal so that it may never bring the eternal night. Takaya, bearer of Hypnos, tries to herald in Nyx's eternal night, same with Ryoji, one of 2 characters linked to the persona of Thanatos along with Makoto. But Makoto, as mentioned, seals Nyx away rather than confirming their arrival. One part of the story that sticks out as a reference to Greek mythos is the death of Shinjiro. It bears resemblance in ways to the story of Attis's death. Attis's father, Croesus, receives a vision that Attis would die by the tip of an iron weapon. He planned to marry him off so that he would be too busy to get into a fight. When a boar lays waste to their land, however, Croesus is cautious but eventually allows Attis to slay the beast with the protection of Adrastus. Adrastus' weapon ends up killing Attis when the spear bounces off the boar's hide. Takaya tells Shinjiro that he is fated to die that night, by Ken's hands or not. So when Shinji is finally able to convince Ken that his mother's death was an accident and Shinji was on his side, Shinji dies anyway trying to save Ken from Takaya. So Takaya's prediction was right. Shinjiro was fated to die even after Ken was set on not killing him anymore. Similarly, Croesus, Attis's father, has a story that is also paralleled. A statesman named Solon told Croesus that no life is deemed happy until it is over. Croesus hears from an oracle that if the Persians attack him, then he would destroy a mighty empire. Foolishly, they go to war and he is captured, and expels Solon's wisdom as he is burned on a pyre. The Persian leader Cyrus recognizes the wisdom and decides to spare his life, and Croesus becomes one of his counselors. In the main story of Persona 3 Reload, Junpei falls for Chidori, and keeps going out to see her, but Chidori kidnaps Junpei as a bargaining chip against Seize, believing it to be beneficial. But Seize ambushes her, and she is captured in turn, and ends up helping Seize by protecting them, most notably Junpei, against Strega later on. In both stories, a character goes from the enemy of the opposing group to then being captured, and finally being valued and useful to them. There's a good handful of references to Greek myth in Persona 3 Reload's story, so I'm going to leave it there after covering the main crisis as well as some supporting story events. So without further ado, let me wrap up this video by drawing some conclusions as to why this game uses Greek mythology in particular as a narrative device. If you watched my video on tarot in video game storytelling, you'd probably remember that I mentioned Persona 3 Reload having a message of defying fate. Fate in Greek mythology is often unavoidable, and you would likely be punished in that mythos for even attempting it. So I don't think the same reasoning can be applied here. Instead, I think it pertains to the other major theme of Persona 3 Reload: mortality. Greek mythology and the work of ancient Greek philosophers often seeks to answer the age-old questions. What happens after death? And what is the purpose of a life? Persona 3 Reload focuses a lot on death in its story, grieving the deaths of not only yourself, but also others. It is an integral part of almost every part of the game's story. Greek mythology focuses on the mortality of humans compared to the immortality of gods, beings who embody ideas and concepts as their domains. In short, what Greek mythology tells you is that while people die, ideals, inspiration, and influence do not. You can be remembered for long after you die, and your actions permanently affect the world even after you leave it. For example, while a war may end, the ramifications and ideas of that war will permanently affect the state of the world. In other words, while mortals may end wars, Athena and Ares continue to inspire different aspects of warfare after those mortals die. So my hypothesis is that Persona 3 Reload uses Greek mythology as it makes a similar statement as the game about the point of life and dealing with death. Makoto inspires the people in his life to do great things, saving many lives both physically and emotionally. That is, before his inevitable death. The people in his life continue to be positively influenced by his actions far after the events of his death. His death itself also affects them emotionally, just like in real life. While you will eventually leave this world forever, the actions you took, the love you spread, the pain you inflicted, it all stays. It's a motivator to make sure you leave something good behind for those who live after your death. If you guys want more videos like this analyzing video game narratives, please like the video and share it around. Subscribe to my channel. It's free, only one click to do, and you can always unsubscribe later. Also, leave a comment telling me if you have any other Greek mythology parallels in Persona 3 Reload that you'd like to share with me, or other story parallels that this video reminded you of from other media. Thank you all so much for watching to the end.